High above the drifting star clouds where space shimmered like a river of silver light, stood the floating kingdom of Dracarion. It was a place built not with stone or metal, but with crystals that grew like living towers. These towers caught the glow of the nearby stars and sent it shining across the sky in soft rainbow colors. Even from far away, travelers could see it, bright, calm, and impossibly beautiful. And ruling this peaceful kingdom was Dragon Emperor Zevranth, the most respected dragon in the known galaxies. Zevranth was ancient, perhaps older than many stars that humans studied through their telescopes. His scales glowed with deep gold and soft green, shifting like light seen through water. His wings, when opened, stretched farther than the largest space cruiser, but it was not his size or age that made him famous. It was the way he ruled, with thoughtful silence, quiet wisdom, and a deep sense of balance. Many rulers wanted things. Some desired more land, others wanted ships or technology or power. But Zevranth wanted nothing. For centuries, the Dragon Emperor had lived by a clear rule. No tributes shall be offered to me. Every species in the nearby galaxies knew this rule well. Dragons usually loved treasures, but Zevranth was different. Gold, jewels, technology, rare plants, expensive metals, none of these interested him. He believed that gifts could bring greed, conflict, or false friendship. So he refused all tributes, not rudely, but firmly. When ambassadors traveled to Dracarion, they were told before landing, "Please carry no gifts. The Emperor accepts none." Most beings found this strange, but they respected it. Some even felt relieved, because giving gifts to dragons was sometimes stressful. Dragons had high standards after all, but Zevranth truly needed nothing. He spent his time adjusting star winds, guiding young dragons, studying cosmic patterns, and watching the quiet beauty of space. If anyone thanked him, he bowed his head politely, but he never accepted anything more. He was a ruler with no greed, no hunger for more, and no desire for praise. Because of this, the galaxy trusted him. On a calm day in Dracarion, calm by dragon measurements, meaning the star winds were soft, and the crystal towers hummed in a peaceful rhythm, Zevranth stood on the highest balcony of his palace. From here, he could see hundreds of galaxies stretched across the sky like glitter scattered on dark velvet. A small council of dragons waited behind him. They were discussing updates from different star systems. One dragon cleared her throat softly. "A courier ship from the human colony of Haven Reach has arrived, my Emperor." Zevranth did not turn around. His deep voice was gentle. "Is there a matter that requires my direct attention?" "It carries a tribute," she answered, sounding nervous. Zevranth finally looked back, raising one elegant brow. His eyes glowed like twin emerald suns. "A tribute," he repeated calmly. "Humans know the rule well. They are careful with customs." The council dragon nodded quickly. "Yes, Emperor, they know. But the ship insists it is not a typical tribute. It carries only one item, and the human pilot said it would dishonor him not to deliver it personally to your court." Zevranth's tail swayed thoughtfully. He never grew angry, but surprises always made him curious. "One item? Describe it." "We cannot," the dragon admitted. "It is very small. We did not open it, of course. The pilot said it is not valuable in the usual sense." Zevranth studied her quietly. Dragons had a way of seeing truth through silence, and he could sense no disrespect in this situation, only confusion. "Bring it," he said. The council bowed and left. Zevranth stepped away from the balcony and walked to his private receiving hall. This hall was enormous by human standards, but dragons found it comfortable. Soft crystal lights glowed along the walls. There were no jewels, no piles of gold, only open space and the soft hum of the palace itself. After a few minutes, the doors opened. The human pilot, dressed in a simple gray flight suit, stepped inside. He walked slowly, looking both nervous and honored. Behind him, two young dragons carried a small, thin object wrapped in clear protective film. When the pilot stood before the Emperor, he bowed deeply. "Great Emperor Zevranth," he said, voice respectful but warm. "I bring a message from Havenreach Colony. It is not treasure. It is not payment. It is simply something a child wished to send." Zevranth blinked. "A child?" "Yes, Emperor," the pilot said. "A 7-year-old human orphan, named Eli." Zevranth felt a strange, small spark of interest inside his chest. Not excitement. Dragons rarely felt that. But something softer, like a quiet warmth. "Explain," the Emperor said gently. The pilot swallowed and nodded. "Last month, your adjustment of the star winds prevented a deep freeze from hitting our colony. Our food garden survived because of your action. The adults were grateful, but it was Eli who insisted on making something for you." Zevranth tilted his head. "Making?" The pilot gestured to the item. The dragon stepped forward and placed it carefully before the Emperor. Zevranth lowered his long neck to look. The item was simple: paper, folded in half. Paper, such a delicate material, surprised him. Paper could not survive space. It must have been protected carefully. The front had uneven, colorful human handwriting. "Thank you." The letters were large, a little shaky, and some were written in crayon. Dragons rarely saw crayons. Zevranth carefully opened it. Inside, drawn in bright colors, was a picture of a big green dragon, obviously meant to be him, standing next to a small, smiling human child. The dragon's tail wrapped around the child protectively, and above them, the sky was filled with stars that looked like yellow dots. Zevranth stared at the drawing for a long, silent moment. There were no symbols of power, no coded messages, no bargaining tokens hidden inside, just childish scribbles and pure gratitude. "He made this?" Zevranth asked quietly. "Yes, Emperor," the pilot said. "He said he wanted to thank the nice dragon who saved our gardens. He worked very hard on it." The Emperor closed the card gently. "This is not a tribute of greed or diplomacy. It is a message of appreciation." "Yes, Emperor." "And the child sent it with no expectation of reward?" "None," the pilot said softly. "He only said he wanted you to know he was thankful." The great hall stayed silent for several long breaths. Zevranth felt something he had not felt in centuries, not since he was young, learning to glide through star winds for the first time. A soft, warm flutter, like the beginning of a gentle melody inside his chest. A humble drawing from a small human child. Something so simple, yet so honest. He looked down at the paper again, studying the messy lines, the bright colors, the uneven smiles. A child had drawn him not as a ruler, not as a powerful being, but as a friend. Slowly, carefully, Zevranth placed the card on a platform of glowing crystal. The palace sensors recognized the Emperor's gesture and enclosed the paper in a soft, protective field. The pilot watched with quiet joy. "So, you accept it?" Zevranth exhaled a long, soft breath, almost like a sigh, but lighter. "For the first time in many centuries," he said, "I will accept a gift." The pilot smiled. "Havenreach will be honored to hear that." Zevranth's eyes glowed gently. "No, the honor is mine." Because in a galaxy of politics, power, and strategy, it was a human child, small, quiet, and pure-hearted, who had given the Dragon Emperor something no one else ever had, a moment of simple, genuine connection. And without even knowing it, that child had also awakened the beginning of a new chapter in the Emperor's long, silent life. The simple paper card stayed in Zevranth's private hall long after the human pilot left Dracarion. Most gifts that rulers received were placed in vaults, but Zevranth had no vault. He had never needed one. Yet now, for the first time in centuries, something small and fragile rested safely inside a soft crystal field, glowing with warm golden light. It was only a child's drawing. But to Zevranth, it felt like a tiny star he had never noticed before. That evening, when the palace grew quiet and most dragons settled into their resting platforms, Zevranth remained awake. He sat near the glowing field, studying the card again. Dragons were enormous creatures, but his long claws were careful, gentle, as if the paper were a tiny, living thing that needed protection. He read the words slowly. "Thank you for protecting us." Such simple words. Humans did not speak in complicated poetic riddles. Their emotions were direct, like flowing water. The inside drawing made him pause every time he looked at it. The child had drawn the dragon, him, with a big smile. Dragons did not usually smile in such a wide, friendly way, but children saw the world as they wished it to be, not always as it was. Zevranth found himself pleasantly puzzled. He whispered to himself, "Why did this child feel the need to thank me?" Of course, he knew the basic reason. He had adjusted the star winds near Haven Reach to prevent a freezing storm. It was a small thing for him. Dragons could influence cosmic energy naturally. They rarely did it for specific worlds, but Zevranth had sensed danger in the star winds and corrected it without much thought. To him, it had been nothing. To the humans, it had been life-changing. He looked at the colors the child had used: bright green for the dragon's scales, yellow stars in the sky, the child's hair colored with a brown crayon that had slightly smudged at the edges. The lines were uneven, yet full of effort. Humans called this art. Dragons created art too, but theirs was made from cosmic crystals, shimmering light webs or deep harmonic sound. Their art required centuries of skill. This paper drawing was so different, so humble, yet it was filled with something more valuable than jewels: honesty. By the next day, word had spread across Dracarion. Whispers moved through the crystal halls like soft breezes. The Emperor kept a tribute. A human child made it. He accepted a gift for the first time. Is this the beginning of something new? Dragons were naturally curious, but they respected their emperor. None dared step into his private hall without invitation. Still, their minds buzzed with questions. Meanwhile, the card continued to sit safely inside the glowing field, where Zevranth had placed it himself. That alone made it special. Later that afternoon, Zevranth summoned his Council of Stars. They arrived quickly, bowing deeply before speaking. The council members were wise, experienced dragons who helped maintain peace throughout the galaxy. One of them, Elder Seraphine, spoke first. "Emperor, we have received questions from nearby worlds. They wish to understand why a tribute was accepted." Zevranth looked calm as always. Because it was not a tribute. The council exchanged curious glances. Another elder cleared his throat. "If it was not a tribute, what was it, Emperor?" Zevranth lifted his chin. "It was gratitude." The elders bowed their heads respectfully. Dragons valued sincerity, and they knew Zevranth never explained things lightly. Still, they did not fully understand. How could a piece of paper covered with childlike lines hold such meaning? Zevranth sensed their confusion. "You may view it," he said calmly. The elders looked surprised but pleased. It was rare for the emperor to share personal matters. They entered his private hall carefully, their large forms moving with quiet respect. When they saw the card glowing beneath the crystal shield, they all fell silent. The silence was long and thoughtful. Dragons appreciated emotion differently than humans did, but even they could sense the pure warmth inside the drawing. The youngest elder finally spoke in a soft voice. "He drew you with kindness." Zevranth nodded. "Yes, he saw me not as a ruler, but as a friend." Another elder tilted her head. "And this moved you so deeply?" Zevranth hesitated for the briefest moment. Then he answered honestly, "Yes." Dragons valued truth, and his answer settled into the hall like a calm wind. The elders bowed slightly, understanding more than before. One asked gently, "What do you plan to do, Emperor?" Zevranth looked at the simple card again. Each color, each line, was beginning to mean something to him. It had awakened a curiosity in him that he had not felt in centuries. "I wish to learn more," he said. That night, he used the palace's mural screens, thin sheets of crystal that could project images from far distances, to search for information about the human colony. The screen shimmered to life, displaying Haven Reach. It was a small place compared to Dracarion's grand spires. The colony consisted of silver domes surrounded by fields of crops. Sturdy solar wings stood in neat rows, gathering sunlight from the nearby twin suns. Humans walked through the fields, working together, smiling, talking. Children played near the community center, chasing each other under the warm light. Zevranth used the screen controls to find information about the child named Eli. The palace system did not intrude on privacy. It simply showed public records and community reports. Eli was 7 years old. He lived in a communal home for children who had lost their families during the colony's early years. Humans often cared for one another through shared responsibility. There was a short video clip of the children's home garden. In it, Eli sat on a small bench, drawing with a box of crayons. His hair was messy and his clothes were simple, but he looked peaceful. He pointed at the sky while talking to another child, saying something the system could not fully capture. But Zevranth read the child's lips easily with his perfect vision. "That's where the nice dragon lives." The Emperor felt that familiar warmth again. Why did such a small human think of him with kindness? Most rulers feared dragons. Even friendly species treated them with cautious respect. But this child had seen his star wind correction as an act of kindness. Zevranth leaned closer to the screen, studying the boy's smile. He continued watching the clips for hours. Humans teaching their young, tending their homes, caring for their plants, laughing together. These were simple things, but they fascinated the Dragon Emperor. Dragons learned slowly and lived for millennia. Humans lived shorter lives but filled them with incredible emotion. Their happiness, sadness, excitement, all of it appeared quickly, brightly, and sincerely. Zevranth admired that. Perhaps that was why Eli's drawing felt like a small star inside him, a star of emotion dragons rarely felt so suddenly. The next morning, Zevranth decided something unusual. He summoned his personal messenger, a sleek silver dragon named Arath. "You will travel to Haven Reach," Zevranth said calmly. Arath bowed deeply. "What message shall I deliver, Emperor?" Zevranth considered the question. He did not want humans to feel afraid. He wanted them to feel seen. "Tell them," Zevranth said gently, "that their message was received with honor." Arath nodded. "And," Zevranth continued softly, "ask if the child, Eli, wishes to send more drawings. Only if he wants to." Arath blinked in surprise. "More drawings? For you, Emperor?" Zevranth's voice was calm, but his eyes glowed with soft warmth. "Yes. I wish to understand how humans see the world through a child's eyes." Arath bowed again. "It will be done." Hours later, Arath left Dracarion, his wings glowing softly as he flew toward the human colony. And as Zevranth watched him disappear into the star-filled horizon, he looked once more at the card glowing on its crystal pedestal. A smile, very small, very rare for a dragon, touched his eyes. A paper card, drawn with crayons, had done something extraordinary. It had opened the Dragon Emperor's heart to curiosity, connection, and a new kind of wonder. He did not yet know it, but the drawing was only the beginning. A quiet beginning to a bond that would change both him and Havenreach forever. When Erath left for the human colony, the crystal towers of Dracarion hummed gently, almost as if the whole kingdom felt something new beginning. Dragons did not often experience change. Their lives flowed like slow rivers, steady, calm, and predictable. But now a small, colorful drawing from a human child was shifting the Emperor's heart in unexpected ways. Zevranth found himself walking through the palace more than usual. His thoughts kept circling around the same simple idea. A child thanked him, genuinely, simply, with no hidden reason. Though he had ruled for many centuries, he realized he had never truly understood humans. He had worked alongside them, made alliances with them, and protected them when needed. But understanding, that was different. They were creatures of emotion, quick to smile, quick to cry, quick to express. Dragons were not like that. Dragons felt deeply, but slowly, and rarely this strongly. That evening, unable to quite rest, Zevranth returned to the glowing field that held Eli's card. The palace lights dimmed automatically as the Emperor approached, creating a soft golden halo around the drawing. The crayon lines glowed softly as if the card carried a tiny sun inside it. Zevranth studied it again. He traced the air above the little stars the child had drawn. They were uneven, shaped more like tiny flowers than real stars, but each one held a certain charm. The dragon in the drawing had huge wings and a big smile. Eli must have drawn him the way he imagined him, not the way he truly appeared. It made Zevranth curious. What else did humans imagine? What else did children see that adults overlooked? He had lived for so long with predictable routines that this small mystery filled him with a sense of gentle excitement. Dragons usually learned from the cosmos, stars, planets, winds. But now, oddly, he wanted to learn from a little paper card. Days passed, though dragons counted days differently than humans. For humans, time raced. For Zevranth, time drifted. But even he found himself watching the horizon more often, waiting for Erath's return. The palace staff noticed. One young dragon asked her friend, "Why does the Emperor keep looking toward the stars? Is he expecting someone?" Her friend whispered back, "Maybe he is thinking about the human child." "Why would a child interest the Emperor?" "I don't know. Humans are strange and emotional. Maybe their emotions affect him somehow." Zevranth heard none of this, but even if he had, he would not have minded. Dragons valued curiosity, even among their youth. Finally, on the 5th day, a shimmering silver shape appeared in the distance. Erath returned smoothly, flying in wide circles before landing on the palace balcony. His scales sparkled from the starlight gathered during the journey. Zevranth walked forward calmly, though a quiet excitement stirred inside him. "Erath," he said, "you have returned. Tell me, the humans received the message?" Erath bowed. "Yes, Emperor. The humans of Havenreach were surprised but honored. They did not expect a dragon messenger." Zevranth's eyes glowed. "And the child? Eli?" A smile formed on Erath's face. Dragons did not smile often, but when they did, it was full of warmth. "Eli was very excited," Erath said softly. "He showed me his new drawing before I even asked." Zevranth felt a spark of warmth. "He created another drawing?" "Yes, Emperor. He made it after hearing that you accepted the first one. He said, 'If the nice dragon liked my picture, maybe he wants to see the gardens he saved.'" Zevranth blinked slowly. The idea felt sweet. This child believed the emperor wanted to see a simple garden. "Did he send it?" Zevranth asked. Erath nodded. From a protective crystal cylinder, he gently took out a folded piece of paper. "This is his second drawing, but he asked me to tell you something before you look at it." Zevranth tilted his head. "What did he say?" Erath's voice became gentle. He said, "Tell the dragon that I'm still learning to draw, but I'm trying my best." The emperor felt something soft press against his heart, like a warm flame blooming inside. Trying his best, not trying to impress, not trying to win favors, just trying because he cared. "Thank you, Erath," Zevranth said. "You may rest now." Erath bowed and left peacefully. Zevranth stayed alone with the new drawing for several long breaths. The crystal cylinder caught the light beautifully, turning the folded paper inside into a tiny, glowing treasure. Finally, with delicate care, he opened it. Inside was a drawing of the Haven Reach Gardens, rows of green plants, yellow flowers, and small fruit trees. And above them was a friendly green dragon, again drawn with an oversized smile, blowing a gentle breeze downward. The breeze was shown as swirling blue lines. Eli had written a label on them, "Helping Wind." Beside the dragon was Eli himself, waving happily, wearing a little jacket the child had colored red. Zevranth stared at the simple picture. He noticed tiny details humans might miss. The way the garden rows were carefully drawn, the small dots representing soil, the little sun drawn in one corner with rays shooting out unevenly. Eli had drawn everything with care. Zevranth found his voice in a soft whisper. "This child sees even the smallest details." He placed the new drawing beside the first. The palace crystal lights shimmered warmly, as if welcoming the new addition. For the first time in centuries, two gifts sat in the emperor's private hall. Not precious stones, not rare technology, just paper, simple, humble paper. Yet they felt more meaningful than any treasure ever offered. After a long moment, Zevranth stepped onto his balcony. The stars stretched across the sky like silver threads. He could see the path Erath had flown. The star winds were calm tonight. The emperor felt something unusual, an eagerness. Dragons rarely felt eager. Their emotions were slow and deep. But the human child's innocence had stirred something powerful in him. He wanted to know more about humans, about their kindness, their dreams, their simple way of seeing the universe. He wanted to understand this warmth that Eli's drawings created inside his chest. At that moment, Zevranth realized something. Curiosity was growing into connection. The next morning, Zevranth summoned the palace knowledge sphere, a floating orb of light containing all recorded history of dragon interactions with humans. "Show me," Zevranth said, "everything humans have drawn about dragons." The sphere glowed, then projected images across the hall, ancient cave drawings, colorful digital art, children's sketches, festival murals, book illustrations. Some were accurate, some were silly, some portrayed dragons as giant protectors, others as mischievous friends. One drawing caught Zevranth's eye, a child's school assignment from decades ago. It showed a dragon helping a tiny human build a spaceship. Zevranth chuckled quietly, a soft, rumbling sound that echoed through the hall. "Humans imagine dragons in many ways," he whispered. The more he studied, the more he understood. Humans like to give meaning to things, even to creatures far bigger and older than themselves. They like to hope, they like to dream, and children dreamed the most. Zevranth thought of Eli again. What more does he dream about? What else does he see when he thinks of dragons? For the first time, the emperor realized he wanted to meet the child face to face, not as a ruler, not as an ancient being, but simply as someone who cared. He would not force the meeting. Dragons respected free will deeply, but if the child wished it, perhaps it was time. That night, Zevranth stood in his grand hall, the two drawings glowing gently beside him. The palace hummed with a soft, peaceful melody, as if sensing the change in him. The Emperor lifted his gaze toward the distant star where Havenreach orbited. A simple human child had done something extraordinary. He had opened a dragon's heart. He had awakened the Emperor's curiosity. He had sparked a quiet bond between two worlds. Zevranth exhaled deeply, his breath shimmering with light. "Eli," he whispered into the starlit night, "I wish to understand your world." The stars twinkled as if answering him, and Zevranth knew this was only the beginning. The idea of meeting the human child stayed in Zevranth's mind like a soft star that refused to fade. Dragons rarely visited smaller worlds unless called for help or diplomacy, but Zevranth felt something different pulling him now. Something gentle, something warm. It was not duty. It was not politics. It was curiosity, and a growing affection he had not felt in centuries. The more he looked at Eli's two drawings, the more he wondered what the child would be like in person. What did his voice sound like? How brightly did his eyes shine when he talked about stars and dragons? Did he draw with his tongue sticking out in concentration, like some young dragons did when shaping crystals? These small human questions felt strangely important. After days of silent thought, Zevranth made a decision. He would visit Havenreach, not as a ruler, not as a guardian, but simply as someone who wanted to understand a child's heart. When the sun rose twice over Dracarion, Zevranth prepared for his journey. He stood at the highest balcony, stretching his wings fully for the first time in many days. His emerald and gold scales shimmered as the light hit them, and the breeze carried a soft echo of power across the crystal spires. Dragons of all ages paused in their routines, sensing the shift in the air. A young dragon asked, "Is the Emperor going somewhere?" Her older sibling nodded. His wings say yes, but where and why? Older dragons exchanged quiet glances. Only Arath knew the truth, and he kept it respectfully to himself. When Zevranth lifted into the sky, the palace bells chimed, a sign of the Emperor's departure. Dragons bowed their heads as he soared past, his wings leaving shimmering trails of energy behind. In a few strong wing beats, he left Dracarion's atmosphere and glided into the vast river of stars. The journey to Havenreach was peaceful. Zevranth followed the familiar wind currents of space, letting the star winds carry him. As he traveled, he thought of the colony, small, humble, filled with people who lived simply and cared for one another. Most of all, he thought of Eli, the child who saw him as the nice dragon. No one had ever called him that before. He liked it more than he expected. Meanwhile, on Havenreach, life moved gently. The twin suns warmed the colony's silver domes, and children played in the community garden, laughing as they watered plants and chased each other. Eli sat on his favorite bench under the shade of a fruit tree. A box of crayons lay beside him, and he worked carefully on a new drawing, this one of a dragon flying above the colony with soft stars around him. He didn't know why, but his heart told him to draw it. "Are you making another picture for the dragon?" a little girl named Mira asked as she skipped over. Eli nodded proudly. "Yes, maybe he will come someday. I think dragons like stars." Mira giggled. "Do you think he'll really visit?" Eli shrugged with a bright smile. "Maybe. Dragons can go anywhere." He returned to coloring, his small hand moving slowly but lovingly across the paper. No one expected what would happen next. As the morning sky shimmered with gentle sunlight, something large appeared above the colony. At first, people thought it was a cloud drifting strangely, but then the sunlight hit it, and the entire colony gasped. Scales, wings, a long, elegant tail trailing radiant energy. "It's a dragon," someone shouted, but not just any dragon. It was the Dragon Emperor. Panic rippled at first, not from fear of harm, but uncertainty. Dragons were majestic and powerful, and the Emperor rarely visited mortal colonies in person. Mothers pulled children close. Workers paused mid-task. The air filled with whispers. What could he want? Is something wrong? Should we hide? No, look, his wings are soft, not threatening. Zevranth descended slowly, shrinking his form as he approached the ground. Dragons could shift their size to avoid overwhelming smaller creatures, and he did so now, becoming no larger than a small house. He landed gently on the open field near the gardens, folding his wings calmly. The colony fell silent. Nobody moved. Except one small boy with a drawing in his hands, Eli. He stared at the Emperor with wide, sparkling eyes, not afraid, just amazed. "That's him," Eli whispered. "That's the nice dragon." Mira tugged his sleeve nervously. "Eli, wait! You can't—" But Eli had already taken a small step forward. Zevranth noticed the movement and lowered his head slowly, making himself as unthreatening as possible. His giant emerald eyes softened when they met Eli's. The boy stopped right in front of him, holding his newest drawing with both hands. "Hi," Eli said softly, his voice almost trembling with excitement. "I made this for you." The entire colony held its breath. Zevranth gazed at the new picture. It showed him flying above Haven Reach with twinkling stars around him. The child had colored the sky purple, even though their sky was blue. Humans sometimes colored skies differently just because they felt like it. Zevranth loved that. "You made this for me?" the Emperor asked, his voice deep but gentle. Eli nodded quickly. "I wanted to show how your wings look when the sun hits them. They get shiny, like magic." The Emperor blinked slowly, touched more deeply than he expected. "Thank you," he said softly. "Your drawings mean a great deal to me." Eli's smile grew so wide, it looked like it might burst off his face. "Really? You like them?" Zevranth nodded. "Yes. They remind me how humans see the world, with hope and imagination." Eli's eyes sparkled even brighter. The adults approached carefully, still unsure how to behave in front of a dragon ruler. The colony leader, a woman named Raina, slowly stepped forward and bowed. "Great Emperor," she said politely, We did not expect this honor. May we ask why you have come?" Zevranth lifted his head slightly. "I came to meet the child who thanked me," he said simply. Gasps spread through the crowd. Eli looked up at the Emperor with wonder. "You came to see me?" "Yes," Zevranth replied gently. "Your drawings reached me more deeply than you can imagine. I wish to see the person who made them." Eli looked like he wanted to jump with happiness. With careful steps, Zevranth moved closer to the garden. He lowered his head to examine the plants, the same plants he had protected with the star wind adjustment. They looked healthy, green, full of life. "Your garden grew well," Zevranth observed. Eli nodded proudly. "Everyone worked really hard. We sang to the plants and we took turns watering them." Zevranth smiled softly. "Your colony's care helped them thrive. My wind only guided what you had already tended." The adults exchanged warm smiles. For the first time, the colony felt completely at ease. Mira finally stepped forward from her hiding spot. Mr. Dragon, Emperor, sir?" Zevranth lowered his head politely. "You may call me Zevranth." Her eyes widened. "Run, He nodded kindly. "Very good." She grinned. Eli grinned, and soon even the adults laughed quietly at the gentle interaction. Zevranth spent the morning talking with the humans, learning about their colony, their lives, their challenges, and their hopes. Humans spoke fast, with emotion in every word. He enjoyed listening. Eli stayed close to him, showing him different parts of the garden, explaining which plants were his favorites, and describing the shapes he liked to draw. The Emperor listened to every word. "Do dragons draw too?" Eli asked suddenly. Zevranth thought for a moment. "We shape crystals into patterns, but I have never used crayons." Eli gasped. "Never?" "No," Zevranth said with amusement. Eli held out a crayon. "Try," Zevranth chuckled. "My claws might be too large." Eli shook his head. "I can help." The idea warmed Zevranth's heart. A human child teaching him something. It felt special. "Perhaps," Zevranth agreed softly. "You can show me your favorite way to draw stars." Eli nodded so hard he nearly fell over. As the suns drifted toward the horizon, the colony gathered to watch the Emperor and the child sit together, Eli drawing happily, Zevranth observing closely like a student learning a new art. No one had ever seen anything like it. A dragon, ancient and powerful, learning from a child. It was a moment the colony would remember forever. And for Zevranth, it was the first step toward a bond deeper than he ever imagined. When the twin suns of Haven Reach finally dipped below the horizon, the sky turned soft purple with streaks of gold. The entire colony gathered quietly around the garden field, watching something they never imagined they would see in their lifetimes. The Dragon Emperor Zevranth sitting with a human child, learning how to draw. It looked almost magical. An ancient dragon with shimmering scales folded beside a small boy holding a crayon. Every few moments, Eli would laugh softly as he showed Zevranth how to make simple shapes, stars, swirls, tiny flowers, and even stick figures. All the adults watched with warm hearts, unable to believe the gentleness of the moment. No danger, no fear, just connection. Eli finished drawing a small star and looked proudly at Zevranth. "See? Like this. If your claw is too big, you can use the side of it. That makes big stars." Zevranth lowered one claw carefully and tried it. The crayon pressed against the paper, leaving a bright yellow streak that spread into a wide star shape. Eli gasped in delight. "You did it! You made a big star!" Zevranth felt a quiet rumble of happiness in his chest, the dragon version of a soft laugh. "I had a very talented teacher," he said gently. Eli blushed with pride. Mira, watching nearby, whispered loudly to another child, "Eli is teaching a dragon, an actual dragon." The other child nodded with huge eyes. "He's the bravest person ever." Eli didn't hear them, but Zevranth did, and it warmed him deeply. When Eli finished his third drawing of the day, Zevranth examined it with great interest. It showed them sitting together in the garden, surrounded by plants and crayons. Zevranth's dragon shape was drawn with an unusually big smile, almost too big for his face. "You gave me a very large smile in this one," Zevranth observed with gentle amusement. Eli nodded. "Because you look happiest when you teach me about stars." Zevranth's heart softened. It was true. Teaching the child earlier about constellations, cosmic winds, and colorful nebulae had brought him unexpected joy. "I am happy," Zevranth admitted, "because you opened a small door in my heart, one I thought was closed forever." Eli tilted his head. "Why was it closed?" Zevranth looked up at the sky, thinking carefully. "When beings live for many centuries, they sometimes forget how simple kindness feels. They let old memories sleep. They become calm, but not warm, wise but not always connected." He turned his gaze back to the child. "Your drawings awakened something inside me, Eli, something bright." Eli seemed to understand in his own simple way. "Because you helped us first, and I wanted to help you feel happy." Zevranth nodded slowly. "And you did." The colony leader, Reyna, approached respectfully. "Emperor Zevranth," she said softly, "is there anything we can offer you? Any comfort? Any food or drink? We want your visit to be pleasant." Zevranth lifted his head graciously. Your welcome has been more than enough. I do not need anything. Eli tugged Zevranth's claw gently. But will you take my drawings back home, so you don't forget me? The Emperor lowered himself to eye level. The colony grew silent, knowing how meaningful his answer would be. I will not forget you, Zevranth said warmly. But yes, I will take your drawings with me. Eli smiled. Then you'll have a piece of Haven Reach with you. Zevranth felt that warm, star-like feeling again. Time passed softly, the way it always does during peaceful moments. Eventually, the sky darkened completely, and countless stars appeared. Bright, calm, beautiful. Zevranth looked at the sky thoughtfully. It is time for me to return to Dracarion, he said quietly. Eli's face fell just a little. Already? Zevranth nodded kindly. The cosmos needs me. My kind watches the winds and patterns of space. But, he paused. This place now has a special place in my heart. A soft breeze moved through the garden. Eli took a small step closer. Will you come back someday? Zevranth lowered his head until his nose gently touched the ground near Eli's feet, a gesture dragons reserved only for those they respected deeply. Yes, he said. I will return, I promise. Eli's smile came back instantly. Reyna bowed. We are honored beyond words, Emperor. Zevranth looked at her with calm warmth. Today I was not an emperor. I was simply a visitor and a friend. Those words touched everyone in the colony. Before leaving, Zevranth wrapped Eli's latest drawing carefully in a gentle energy sphere so it would not tear during flight. The glowing sphere floated above his claw, soft and warm. This, Zevranth said, will be treasured in my palace. Eli's eyes sparkled. I'll make you more next time, and I will happily receive them. It was a new kind of pact. Not political, not strategic, just heartfelt. When Zevranth opened his wings to leave, their glow washed across the colony like a soft sunrise. He rose slowly, gracefully, becoming larger and larger until his full size returned in the sky. Many humans bowed, others waved. Children jumped excitedly. Eli ran forward and shouted into the sky, Goodbye, Zevranth! I'll draw the biggest star for you next time. High above, the Emperor heard the tiny human voice, and he rumbled a warm reply that echoed like thunder wrapped in kindness. Goodbye, Eli. Then, with a powerful yet elegant motion, Zevranth soared back into the cosmos. His wings left trails of shimmering light behind him, marking the path home. When he returned to Dracarion, the crystal towers brightened instantly as if greeting their emperor. Dragons bowed respectfully as Zevranth passed, but something was different this time. He carried something with him, not jewels, not relics, not technology, paper drawings. He went straight to his private hall. The two earlier drawings still sat safely in their protective field, glowing softly. Zevranth placed the new drawing beside them and activated a fresh shield of golden light. The three drawings glowed together, as if celebrating their reunion. Zevranth stepped back and studied them. They looked beautiful, simple, colorful, innocent. But most important, they were filled with meaning, because they represented connection, kindness, friendship, and hope. For the first time in centuries, Zevranth felt something loosening inside him, an old, quiet loneliness he had never fully acknowledged, fading away. He looked at the drawings again and said aloud, though no one else heard him, These are treasures of the heart. The next day, Zevranth stood before his council of stars. The elders sensed a change in him, something brighter, something gentle. The Emperor announced his new decree. From this day on, tributes of genuine gratitude shall be welcomed in Dracarion. A startled hush fell over the council. One elder asked carefully, Emperor, You will accept gifts now? Zevranth shook his great head. Not gifts of wealth, not offerings of power. Only those given with honest hearts. Only those meant to share hope, kindness, or appreciation. Another elder whispered, "Like the child's drawing." Zevranth nodded. Yes, because such gifts remind us of connections between species. They remind us of the beauty of smaller worlds. They remind us to stay warm inside. The council bowed deeply, touched and humbled by the Emperor's words. A new age had begun for dragons. Word spread across nearby systems, but no gift ever matched the quiet beauty of the first paper card, drawn by a little orphan child who simply wanted to say, "Thank you." Zevranth visited Havenreach many times after that. Each visit was peaceful, filled with shared stories, gentle laughter, and new drawings from Eli, who grew in both skill and heart every year. The colony welcomed him not as a ruler, but as a friend. And Zevranth welcomed their gratitude not as an emperor, but as someone who had discovered something priceless. Kindness needed no treasure to shine. And even the mightiest of beings could be moved by a child's simple love.